Hello, hello. We're back for another Wet Ink Wednesday, and this time I am joined by the incredible Bridgett Jeffries, who is a writer, the maestro of Symphony Entertainment, streamer of all the Call of Cthulhu you can shake a stick at, and the community community coordinator for
hmm
Chaosium. So the a lot of different threads you're pulling together here, Bridgett. Welcome to my humble show.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for having me. I'm like super, super, super excited to be here. But you already know I'm like a huge fangirl of like wedding games. So you're like, you want to interview? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd love to spend more time with you guys. You guys are
Well,
awesome.
I mean, so I'm glad that you're already a fan because I don't have to
hmm
but so we worked, I think the first project, like by the time this video comes out, well, it's already, you'll be like working on your third thing for us, but like we're here
Yes.
to talk about the first time we worked together
Okay.
for Heckin Good Doggos. And so I don't
Yes.
know, like there's a lot of steps in between, like I'm a person who exists, and then like now I'm writing a RPG adventure for about dogs. There's got to be
Right.
steps in between, I would imagine. So tell us some of the steps in between, like started. I haven't interviewed you before, so start at the beginning. How did you come
Okay.
into role playing games? How did you come into like being a creator, and like give us the highlights of the path that you took.
The highlights in the past. Okay, so I'll attempt to make this one super fast. So I was in high school, and this is a black female in Akron, Ohio, in inner city school where I was right downtown, and like let's say 98% of the school was black. So inner city school. I never heard of gaming before. I never heard of a tabletop role playing game. That was just something that I hadn't been exposed to. It was something none of my friends had been exposed to. I was in 10th grade, and I got put into detention by my AP calculus teacher for talking too much in class.
I'm shocked.
Let's
Please,
get everyone their shocked faces. Bridgett
please,
running her
please,
mouth.
please continue. I'm sorry.
No, it's perfect because it's me running my mouth. Of course, I got put in detention. Anyways, I'm sulking in detention, and my teacher, Mr. Fox, is on a dry erase board in front of me. And like Matt, he's drawing mountains and a really crappy looking castle, and he's got some numbers and some stats. And my curiosity kind of like overrode my irritation with being in detention. I was like, all right, what are you doing? What's on the board? He's like, oh, this is a map for a game that I'm running. I was like, that means nothing to me. What do you mean a game that you're running? So he unpacks it very slowly. At the time, they were playing. Oh man, it was D&D. Was it second edition? I think it was second edition D&D. Like we're base Stacko, whatever version that was. It was that
I
one.
think that's second edition. Yeah.
It's a second edition, yeah. So he goes through like the story narrative part of it. He's like, okay, so there are these group of friends. They come together. We play this, shared campfire storytelling game. There's a princess and a tower, and this is a tower, and this is a hill, and they have to overcome these challenges. And she's, surrounded by a dragon, and blah blah blah. Which is like a story we're all familiar with, right? We can
All
always,
right. Sure.
we can all relate to like the princess and the dragon in video games, popular media, Game of Thrones, whatever. So, anyways, I was like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, and they're gonna go and they're gonna fight the dragon. So the following week, I came back to his class during that same detention period. I was like, hey, Mr. Fox, what happened with like the lady in the castle with the dragon? He's like, oh, she died. What? That's not what happens in media. He's like, oh yeah, she died. One of the characters messed up and da 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 da. And it just immediately hooked me because he was so invested and so passionate in the story. I was just fascinated that the princess in the tower could die. So I started coming back to him week after week after week, like asking for updates on the story. And then Matt, he finally was like, hey, do you want to join the game?
Mm,
Yeah, I
yeah.
want to
I mean,
join the game. That
you're
sounds
in at that
amazing.
point.
Right. I'm
I,
invested at that point. I know just as much as what's going on as players. There are some hurdles that you have to consider when you're dealing with a situation like that. He was a teacher. I was a student. This was me staying out until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning in the basement with all of his white buddies. My
yeah.
mom and he had a very transparent conversation about expectations, about my
Um,
grades not being able to fail, how this whole situation would be handled. And that's how I actually got introduced into tabletop role playing games.
wow. I mean, that's like a real 0 to 60 kind of thing. Like if you get into that world of like, oh, now I'm gonna go to the basement of the dude, and he's got the dungeon I saw on the board is now on the table. Is that a thing
Yeah, exactly.
oh
Oh, exactly.
man.
Oh my God. It was, oh, yeah. It was it was overwhelmingly exciting from start to finish. It was also just really overwhelming because the story part is always fun, but once you start getting into the mechanics, it's like, what's a D? What you want me
Mhm.
to roll? I didn't know there were dice. I thought we were just telling a story. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
all of that happened in the basement of my AP calculus teacher's friend's house.
Wow.
Yeah,
That
trippy, right?
is, yeah, that's an incredible like entree into the world.
Yeah.
Um and like that, it makes so much sense to me that like you're now like have your own actual play channel, because like that's how you started. You were like, I got to get this week's update. I got to tune in. I got to come back to the teacher's room and get the next update.
Right. I
You
gotta
know,
get the
like
next update. What happened in the story? When you're super addicted, super passionate, super bought in, you're like, what is it? What happened? The buy-in matters. It helps.
mm, yeah, it's that's incredible. So that is a wonderful way to get into the hobby. But
Hmm.
then like what was like at what point, like how long was it before you're like, no, I can't, it's not enough to like roll the dice and tell the story. I gotta write this stuff. Like how is
Ooh.
it like, I mean, years, or is it like how soon were you a contributor to products and stuff like that?
No, that's a brilliant question. And I haven't been asked that one before. So this is going to be the best articulation that I can give you here, Matt. I started playing my 10th grade year in high school, graduated, went to college, did the whole thing where I was like on meetup boards or going to the local game shop, just trying to see if I could get into any games
Right, right.
of any sort. Because I didn't, I was in a new state going for college. I went to Florida State. So I remember going into game shops, looking at boards and, pulling phone numbers off of the rip it off, trying to
Oh
find
yeah,
league
yeah, yeah.
tables, trying to get plugged into this community that I wasn't aware existed out in Tallahassee. And I did. And let's say I played all through college and after college. I remember this much, at least not. I was sitting at a table. A friend was playing, I think it was Pathfinder at the time, or running Pathfinder. We were having a good time. And I remember looking at the table at some point and then looking at my friend and thinking to myself, I can run this better.
Ooh.
I can tell a better story than this. These inconsistencies or the lack of buy-in, or I bet I could do this better. So I tried it. I jumped out there. I TPK'd the table about halfway through the first station. I mismanaged and mishandled everything. Literally killed the whole table in the first 2 hours of the game. I didn't even know this shit was possible in Pathfinder, but here we are. So I went back to the drawing board. I was like, let
Just
me
add
try
more
this again.
dragons.
Just maybe take some away. So I went back to the drawing board again and again and again. I ate a lot of humble pie. I took a lot of criticism and coaching from my friends. I found a couple mentors that helped me along the way until I started getting
Sure.
comfortable telling stories, telling stories, telling stories. So then I started running stories, almost became a partial forever GM. And then what made me publish the very, very first time? Jared Smith from Bait Al Azif, which he owns the Cthulhu Mythos role playing magazine, he reached out to me in the blind. He said, "Hey, I heard you ran this amazing historical game called Beasts of Jevudan
Oh,
at Origins, and I would like you to write it up for me." And I was like, "I've never written up a game before. I don't even know how to start." And he said, "It's okay. I'll teach you. I'll help you." It took a year. It took me a year to write that entire scenario because I was so overwhelmed. I was insecure. I hadn't read the Call of Cthulhu rules. I didn't even own the book, but here we are. And once I
yeah.
published it, I was just like, I can do that again. And so I did. And then I did. And then I just started branching out into these different other facets of gaming, from podcasting to streaming to
Sure.
publications, Kickstarters, and kind of from there.
That's it's so great. And I've talked to, I love hearing about people's way in, because it's always like so rarely does somebody get there on their own. There's always
Right.
somebody who like shows them the ropes, or like invites them to step up to the next level. And so like it's like you're talking about, this guy is like, oh, I heard you did a good job. I want you to put that down on paper. And you're
Yeah.
like, what? And he's like, no, really, here, start on page one and write down like an intro. And like, it's
And
great.
go.
That's
Yep.
so amazing that you've
Yeah.
got, I mean, everybody has those people that like brings them along. And so it's
Yeah.
great. It's great.
And those leaders, whether they look at themselves as leaders or not, are invaluable to this community because we want to cultivate it where it's a safe and welcoming place for new people to come in and to
Absolutely.
explore and to create. But coming into something new in the blind is hard. So having someone be able to reach out a hand and be like, all right, come here, I got you. Let me show you at
Uh-huh.
least how I did it. And let me
Uh-huh.
introduce you to my friend who did it. And da 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 da. Those moments change lives for us, at least professionally in this arena.
Yeah. Okay. this has been amazing. But we're also there's so much, Bridgett. There's so much I want to talk to you about. I went through my list of questions before it started, and like we haven't even gotten uh even halfway through. So
I'm sorry, I
ostensibly,
talk a lot.
no.
Big surprise.
I've loved everything you said. Uh, ostensibly, this is here to talk about Heckin Good Doggos. Heckin Good Doggos,
Yes.
at the time when this video comes out, will be there would be a new adventure for Heckin Good Doggos coming to Free RPG Day, uh, which will be just a few days after this video goes out. But you were
Congratulations.
part of, yeah,
Congratulations, guys.
it's exciting.
Congratulations,
It's
babe.
exciting. But you wrote for the first you were one of the stretch goals of the
Yes.
original campaign for Heckin'
Yes.
Good Doggos. So you got to create your own story.
Yeah.
So it's much different than like Call of Cthulhu, and there's no
Mm-hmm.
TPK and all that kind of stuff. So tell us a little bit about your doggo adventure that you wrote and that's now in the Fetch Quests book.
One, again, thank you so much for inviting me to be along with that process and that experience. It was just, you guys are so incredibly great to work for. It's just, thank you again for that invitation. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, Heckin' Good Doggos. You guys reached out to me to be a stretch goal writer. Horror is my happy place. Symphony Entertainment is a company that focuses on horror. My one of my primary things I do at Chaosium is focused on Call of Cthulhu with its horror. So horror is my happy place. It's where I like to habitat and where I hang out. But one of the reasons I enjoy horror so much, I promise I'm going to answer this question,
Yo, no, please.
is because the emotional beats for me hit harder.
Mm.
They land harder, the landing stick, they feel more organic, they feel larger. It's easier for me to stick my teeth into sensations of fear or vulnerability or betrayal or isolation when horror is on the backdrop. So you guys reached out to me for a Heckin' Good Doggos, and I was just like, all right,
Which has
I'm
almost
going to
none of
write a
those
horror one.
things necessarily.
Right,
It's
right, right,
supposed to
right.
be family friendly. It's
Family
happy go
friendly,
lucky, and
happy go
like the
lucky.
dog cannot die. Like that, those
Listen,
are all important parts.
I brought my horror right on top of it and toned it down to family friendly because what's the basis of the scenario? It's called One of Us. And I focused on two things: emotional beats. What is the power of friendship and isolation and betrayal and bullying and those very strong emotional beats that even children can connect to? A child knows what it
Yeah.
feels like to be bullied. A child knows what it feels like to be ostracized. A child knows what it feels like to be introduced into an environment where they're new or they're different. So I want to hit all those emotional beats. And then with cosmic horror, I just brought in an alien factor with the dog. There's
Right.
something weird about this dog. There's something alien about this particular character. There's something foreign. There's something different. There's something cosmic about it. So I brought my horror. I toned it down to be family friendly, and then I just really leaned into the emotional beats. And I think that's probably one of my favorite things about writing that particular scenario for you guys. Dogs, for me, because I'm such a huge dog lover, immediately come with a whole package of horror. Everyone hates sitting through a horror movie and the dog dies. Everyone gets mad
Mm-hmm.
about it. We all flip our computers. We all want to go choke the director. That happens every time. Um, but we weren't here to traumatize people. We were here to tell a good story. And you guys gave me the breathing room to be who I was and tell the stories that I wanted to tell in that particular scenario.
And I yeah, I mean, like when you get a talented writer in, you just kind of step back and let them write it, like
Thanks,
you know,
babe.
you're not talking about like a tenth grader that we had to do any hand holding for, like you're well established now. um so it's great. And so I want to kind of, you've done a great job, and like it makes so much sense, like when you explain it that way, right? It makes so
Mm-hmm.
much sense, like of course you did it this way, but like the cosmic horror and the stuff like that. So
Yeah.
the scenario is set at like a doggy daycare. Is that
Mm-hmm.
a good way to describe it?
It is. Yep. A doggy daycare,
and
I think, off of the Great Lakes somewhere.
and so I know you ran your own. Was it a doggy daycare, or was it a rescue? What did you do? Because it's like you just set it at your own backyard, basically, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this is
Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to call myself lazy anymore. What I'm going to start doing is calling myself intuitive. This is at least some free advice that I will answer that question. Also, give a shout out to new writers. Don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. Write stuff that you're familiar with. It will help your momentum so incredibly much. You pitched me Heckin' Good Dogs. I knew I wanted emotions. I knew I wanted horror. And at the time, I was in my 6th or 7th year of being a full-time dog boarding business owner. So I ran a daycare and a kennel full time out of my house, I think for up to 6 years by the time that you guys invited me to write.
That's
And
a
it was
lot of
all out of my
dogs.
house. 2 levels of nothing but like kennels and runs, a half acre of yard in the backyard. Literally, I did doggy daycare and boarding full time, right with what you know. So I was sitting there, it's like, all right, what type of story am I going to tell for Heckin Good Dogs?
Uh-huh.
Oh, you know
Uh-huh.
what? I can beat myself to the finish line. I'm going to put it at a doggy daycare. And that's exactly what I did. All of the character names, whether it's a PC or the dogs, are all my client names. I literally just pulled up my client roster and pulled names from there. The breeds that I use, spoiler alert, all the villain dogs in that are breeds that I find problematic. Ha, I'm no longer in the industry. You can be mad about me now. All breeds have their challenges. People have different tastes, but the breeds that are all villains in that game are just breeds that I have personally struggled with. All of the hero breeds are my favorite breeds. Like, come here, Gabriel. Come here. Join an interview. Come here. Come here. Uncle Matt wants to see
We gotta
you.
have
So
a
this is
gotta have a dog on the Doggos interview.
Right. Come here. Come on. Come on. Can you see
Oh,
him?
look. I
There we
see the
go.
dog. Look at that
Yeah.
dog. That's
So
a sizable dog. What a good
140
doggo.
pounds of fluffy fluff. So one of the wise hero characters in Heckin Good Doggos is a Bernese mountain dog. Good boy. Down. You're not gonna get down on YouTube recording? Down.
Since you invited me up here, I'm gonna stay.
This is free affection now. So I wrote what I knew, Matt. I based it in a doggy daycare, and I used the dog behavior that I have a background in to help propel the story.
So I want to build on that with my next question, where I love finding out, like, because almost everyone who does RPG stuff at the indie level is doing it on the side. Almost no one is doing that as their job. So they've got some other sort of job, as you did. You did a dog boarding facility for years. That's your bread and butter. But then you're
that was my
also
bread and
doing
butter,
this
babe.
stuff. So I'm fascinated by that overlap of, like, okay, so I'm an actor, but then now I'm an RPG writer, or I'm a dog kennel owner and an RPG writer. So, like, what is in the Venn diagram? What skill set is the one that crosses over for you between those two things? Like, like what? Because, like, it there's got to be something. There's got to be something that crosses over between those two lines of work. And what do you think it is for you as a somebody who's got 2 levels of your house full of dogs, other people's dogs, and, like,
oh, that's such a beautifully articulated question. I'm gonna go 2 different ways on you, Matt.
Sure.
I'll go 2 very quick directions on you, and see if I can at least spin these down. So, one, there's a lot of benefit to writing what you know,
Right.
what you're familiar with, what you have a background in. So me basing a scenario in a kennel made sense for me. I work in a kennel. I owned a kennel. I built one up from scratch. So I kind of understood the arena that I could play around in, because I didn't have to do a whole lot of research on it. That made it easier for me.
Sure.
The second half of that is the very first scenario that I've already told you about that I published was Bridgett Jeffries, which was based on a historical event that happened in Gévaudan, France.
I want to talk about that next. But go ahead.
Where a wolf ran through a community for like 3 years, killing people, and they couldn't put this wolf down. They couldn't figure out why he was killing. You know what my second adventure was? Sorrow and Savo, that you just played in. What is Sorrow and Savo about? The man-eating lions in Africa running through a camp, and nobody could put them down. Why did I start with those 2? Matt, I have a history degree. I majored in religion and classics at Florida State University. I have a history degree, so historical events, especially ones that are tied to animals, because I really love animals, were familiar to me. So my first game, I wrote one called Beasts of Gévaudan because I already knew what the wolves did out there. I had already fallen in love with the movie Brotherhood and the Wolf.
Wait, I was just thinking, I was like, was this before or after you'd seen that movie?
I still got the DVD downstairs. That was one of the most gorgeous films ever filmed. Same thing with Sorrow and Savo. Absolutely loved. What is the name of that movie, babe? Help me. Ghost in the Darkness.
Ghost in the Darkness. Yeah.
So the overlap, the first one is my background. I have a history background and I like animals. The second overlap, I think people will perform better if they write the games that they want to play in. That's another common overlap. I would love to investigate what's going on with animal killings. I would love to be in the middle of a dog daycare and be able to wag my tail and fall in love
Mm,
with my kennel owner and then try to decide whether I leave my friends or I go with the cute little girl that wants to adopt me. Those are games I would like to play. So my Venn diagram overlap, historical, because I have a background in it, and games that I want to play.
there you go. That works. I love it.
Thank you. Woo.
All right. So history degree, you
Yeah.
studied religion, you
Yeah.
studied history, you love animals, so it makes total sense that and you're saying beasts multiple, right? Like your adventure has beasts in it. Like that's
So
because the legend is of one wolf, right?
it
Like
is.
so you gotta turn it up just that little bit, right?
I didn't. What I tried to do was be clever without spoiling too much of the scenario.
Oh,
I'll tell you this
is it
much.
turn out man is the monster all along? Is that the
Bam, you stuck the landing. Is it because horror and emotional beats?
Sure.
It's really easy to go, let's kill the wolf. That's analogous
Mhm.
to playing a D&D game where you go, let's kill the dragon. But what if that isn't the actual monster?
Right. Excellent. Excellent. So tell me a little bit more about these sort of like, I mean, we've talked about two movies, right? So
Yeah.
the Savo, the famous incident, like
Mm-hmm.
you can go and see I've seen the lions. They're in a museum, right?
In
Somebody shot
Chicago.
them and they're taxidermied, and you could go see those lions.
Yep, you sure
And
can.
um and there was a movie about it starring
Mm-hmm.
big name people, and like again
Mm-hmm.
the French movie Brotherhood of the Wolf. Like
Yep.
these aren't completely unknown incidents in history, right? Is what I'm
Mm-mm.
saying.
Nope.
But they're not like as famous as, like, I don't know, Napoleon, or like people always want to talk about Valley Forge and
Mm-hmm.
Washington there and how cold it was and whatever, whatever, whatever. Like those are bigger moments. So like,
Yeah.
and then the other thing that I got to listen to you did earlier this year is the Echoes in the Mist, um, which is an adventure you wrote set in
Mm-hmm.
Regency era Cthulhu.
Yes.
You played it with the incredible people over at the Old Ways podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And that again is like, I mean, the Year Without a Summer is something that
Yeah.
people know, but again, it's not necessarily like as famous as, I don't know, the Spanish American War or something like that. It's like so it seems like you're looking for things that are less, I'm going to use these words specifically. You are
Yep.
looking for things that are less heralded
Uh-huh.
and then heralding them, and
Oh my
so
God, you
like,
get me. I feel like you actually see me. Holy hell, Matt. Yes. Yes.
so so
Brilliant
tell
articulation.
So tell me about what attracts you to those like unsung or underappreciated moments, like and how you find them and some stuff like that.
Yeah. So, oh my God, talk about feeling seen in this moment, Matt. Absolutely brilliant articulation. So, not to take this overly heavy, but I personally psychologically have attunement issues from my childhood. My trauma can get triggered or kicked up really hard when I feel like people don't see me
Mm,
or they don't understand me. It's just something that I am currently healing and growing from attunement issues as childhood. And a lot of that is going to come from migrating into adulthood. I'm a queer Black woman. Queers, women, and people of color have a shit ton, sorry for the language, I should have checked with language for you before, of undertold stories, underacknowledged stories, stories that aren't being told, aren't being expressed, are pushed under the rug, are being whitewashed or ignored altogether. So, one of my reasons for targeting not the big mainstreams, one, professionally, a lot of those stories are oversaturated. It can get very, you're just like, oh my God, so we've got something else going on at the Eiffel Tower of Paris. We get it. Okay. It's a lot easier to kind of pull back and start finding those nuggets of history that aren't so mainstream. So for marketing, it helps with just diversifying your storytelling portfolio. From the other aspect of it is I enjoy finding those moments and then digging in, doing research, trying to find those undertold stories. So, like, prime example, in Sorrow and Savo that you just played, we had a character named Zawadi that was a part of a Kenyan police force that was there to help police the camp. That wasn't addressed at all in The Ghost in the Darkness. That wasn't a thing at all. And a lot of the stories that you read and a lot of the retelling stories and a lot of the creative, impressions that you get of that story, you don't hear about those people, but they existed. They were there. We have
Mhm.
photographs of them that still
Yeah,
existed.
yeah,
So
yeah.
one of my big things with not only Sorrow and Savo, I also did it with Beasts of Jevons, and I did it with Echoes in the Mist too. Regency retelling story tends to be really white. It's like Black
Sure.
people just suddenly didn't exist in Regency era at all. Just like, they just don't exist. They're not here. Queer stories tend to be really underrepresented in Regency retellings. It's like Molly houses were really big thing there. Queerness has been around since the dawn of time, but
Yeah,
somehow
yeah,
in
yeah.
Regency Cthulhu, we're just following Jane Austen with like batting eyelashes and a cute white bow. So I did the exact same thing. I was like, nope, there were people of color and there were queers in Regency Cthulhu, and I'm going to research them and I'm going to make sure their stories are told here because I refuse to produce another Regency so white storytelling. So
Yeah.
literally, that's how that all
Regency
rewinds
so white.
together.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
you
Regency so white.
well, right, but like I mean we can you've got like, smugglers, you've got like
Mm-hmm.
the guy who's the most batting eyelashes that happened was when the tailor was trying to get it with the captain. Like like that is you certainly succeeded in that Echoes in the Mist in bringing those people and putting them in. Well, and the one of the main characters is it's not like the debutante coming out ball is for the lady who came from India.
From
Like it
India. Yeah.
you just put in all of the parts of the British Empire that were there,
Right.
that did exist, and you just put them on stage, instead of
Correct.
like not putting them on stage.
Correct. Correct. It's an intentional effort that I think all of us should be making. Um, but I also understand that there can be some challenges with that. I had someone tell me, Matt, like, I'm so glad that you were the one that ran that game and told those stories because I don't know how I would feel putting an escaped slave into a game as a white creator.
Yeah, it is.
It's a weird balance.
We had to cycle the recording there right at right at a critical moment. So what I was gonna say is the the challenge of representation as a white creator is I do feel it because
Mm-hmm.
it is there's been so many white creators who have written very bad characters over the
Yeah.
entire course of European history, right? And so it's sort of like, okay, well, I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to do that. And then, but then what do I do instead if you don't feel like you can do the historical research, or especially like,
Right.
there's the question of like whose story is it to tell and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, I tend to fall down on the side of like, well, it's better to admit that the people were there all along, like, and put them in the story, even if you don't do it perfectly representatively, because it's the truth that those like
Mm-hmm.
black people have been part of American history from before, some before the shot heard around the world. It's like
Right.
it's part of the history. So put black people in your stories. Like it's not wrong for them to be there. So
Right.
but then yeah, I mean, I think there is such a conversation now about letting people tell their own stories, and so then
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of white creators have to kind of feel like they have to step back and not talk about other people's issues. But then I don't know, it does. I feel that difficulty, but it
Yeah.
is
Because it's a real one.
sure. I think there's such a legacy of doing it badly that
Yeah.
white creators have to be aware of, and not don't and I gosh, I don't know, we could get into like so many other things
So many
about
ways you
like
can unpack this.
well, right, I mean, the first thing that jumps to mind is like the whole Cthulhu Mythos project is like erected on some shaky foundations as far as that is concerned,
Lovecraft
but
was
like
a racist.
yeah and
One.
there's a lot of assumed there's a lot of the way I think of it is a lot of people are like, oh, Tolkien was racist or whatever because orcs are bad, and it's like, the it, maybe, but the thing is that if you don't examine the
Mm-hmm.
assumptions when you take over the older material and put it into your game,
Yeah.
you could perpetuate stuff which was uninformed to start with. And
Oh, good
whether
articulation.
whether or not the original creator was or wasn't bad, who knows? Like
Right.
100 years ago at this point, and that dude's dead, but
Yeah.
like if you don't examine how it comes across, then that's on you.
Right.
So that's, I don't know. I don't
No,
know if, I mean, I'm not saying these things as like, I've figured it out, this is the best way to do it. I mean, this is just how I do it.
no, and I don't think there is a right or wrong answer, because I think as time change, perceptions, perspectives change, this conversation evolves. I know I've evolved with this particular conversation. So this is just not right, not wrong. I'm just going to throw you different valleys and different what's the opposite of a valley? The valley,
Mountain, hill,
hill, yeah, peaks and valleys. There, it's close
peaks
enough.
and valleys.
They peaks and valleys. I was like, what am I trying to say? That I've gone through with this particular discussion and my experience with it. One, space needs to be continually made for people of color in the gaming industry. Even if that means targeting them and saying, hey, I have this space for you, come write for me. That's how I got involved. Jarrett reached out to me, said, hey, I heard you ran this really awesome game, and I'm looking for diverse voices. Jarrett taking that chance and making a space for me has propelled me all the way where I am, where I'm working in this industry full time now. So intentionality on making space for those stories to be told by those creators is huge. One valley that I was in for a solid 6 months, Matt, was like, this industry is all white people. If they're not going to tell the story, so they just don't get told, somebody has to do something. You can't put that weight on all of your people of color or your queer creators to tell those stories. That's not fair to us.
Right.
But then the back door to that is like, yeah, but is it their stories to be told? There are still people right now crucifying Matt, whatever his name, for putting out a sequel to Lovecraft Country. I mean, Lovecraft Country did an amazing overlap between Black stories and, the cosmic mythos. But there are people right now still banging down doors right now. He was a white creator. I thought he did a phenomenal job, but I also understand, like, was that his story to be told? Well, are you going to tell it? It's a weird finger pointing, the self accountability issue when you start wrapping into that as well. Another thing I would also at least put out there for storytellers: if you're worried about your story, there are sensitivity readers. If you're not familiar with this concept, there are people that will step up and say, hey, send me what you've got, and I will let you know if any of it is problematic. Because historically speaking, I'm not going to say Tolkien was racist, but there is an overlapping, reoccurring theme that if you're big, strong, and dumb, you're going to be a villain. Right. Because that's going to be associated with Black people. So,
right. I mean, Tolkien talks about like swarthy men from the South, which sounds more Italian-y to me than like Black people. But then Tolkien didn't describe the orcs as having dreads, but that's like something that like got added on at some point. Like there's a whole history there that's been super examined by other people, and
absolutely that I don't have to unpack right now.
Right,
but
right.
embedded racism is a thing, and it pops up all the damn time.
Maybe I'll put some links to that kind of investigation in the thing, but like
into the thing,
into the description. All right, I think so. I don't want to cut off our discussion if there's more to talk about, but I think
no, you're good, because we can unpack that one for hours.
I think that is less. It has been unpacked before, and yeah, we can continue to unpack it. I do want to briefly at least ask you about like actual plays, and obviously this is what the Symphony Entertainment does. I was on one of your live streams not too long ago
and crushed it.
And I mean, I think this brings back to the thing that you started with about like the emotional investment. Like I think I told you at the time, like right after the session, I was like, oh, I was not prepared for like how like emotional everybody was going to get with the thing. Like I tend to not play that way. I tend to I like the separation of like, here's my character sheet and I'm going to roll the dice, and like I'm not really involved in like the horrible things the character is experiencing. But then to be live with other players who are like, no, we're going to challenge each other and like get in each other's faces, and I'm like, oh, this is whoa. It was definitely an intense experience, but like obviously it's something that you jazz on and really get into and have from the beginning, because you were saying like that those emotional beats of the, what was it, you're tapping your heads again. I'm trying to remember exactly what you said. You said like the betrayal and the fear and all those things, like those go way back of like they got you excited and like you've turned them all into like, no, that's the excitement I want, instead of like
Right.
that's the
I want you to
fear of what.
feel.
So I mean, you do a great job with that on your own
Thank you.
channel, but I it can't have been easy to build up that repertoire. Like, you've got a bunch of players who do that, and I mean, you've got to keep, you're doing, I mean, at the time of the recording, we're in Miskatonic May, so like you're doing
Yeah.
like a lot of adventures every week, to kind of like pack in the excitement into May. So like, have you talked to us a little bit about like what it's like to run a actual play channel, and like kind of keep that turning over, and like how much happens behind the scenes? Because like you can tune in on Twitch and like, oh, I had 3 hours of fun. Like, surely it wasn't it wasn't like 10 hours of work to make the 3 hours of fun happen. Surely, right?
No, it was. It is. That's just so exhausting. Okay, so back into the first part of something I think you said that I thought was really cool. Bridgett is really into emotional beats in horror and emotional
Uh-huh.
role playing, immersion, LARPing. Let's go all in and just unapologetically dive in. That's my lane. That's Bridgett's happy
Hmm.
spot. That ain't everybody's happy spot. To your point, some people enjoy the distance. They want to roll bones. They want to tell a cool story. They want to jump off and have a good day and not be stressed out for the next 3 hours, like most of my storytelling will do to people. I think that's the beautiful thing about role-playing games, though, and with how diverse Wedding Games writing portfolio is. I know that you guys know this and can appreciate it because you're really intentional about it. Not every game is for every person.
Yeah.
There are different strokes for different folks. And the cool thing about tabletop role-playing games is you can explore, dabble, sample. You can find what works for you. And then you can find other people that are into that same jazz.
There's
Symphony is all into the buy-in. It's just one of our ongoing jokes is thirst, shade, and then buy-in. Because everyone the brand that I'm promoting, my little happy place of horror, is let's lean in as hard as we can into the personal horror and the suffering of the characters. That's our
that's
brand. It doesn't
yeah.
have to be everybody else's brand, but that's my little corner of the world, and that's what I cater to. So, with that being said, with actual plays, that is something that I have been very intentional about trying to bring to the storytelling because it's different. Some people might flirt with it and then step away from it. Like, if you look at Ain't Slayed Nobody, that I'm a full-time cast member over there, there's this comedic horror. It's how
Hmm.
horrific can we be while cracking jokes the entire time? The jokes hit just as hard as the horror, and that is perfect for their fan base. That's not Symphonies. Ours is let's lean in and break each other. Awesome. Have a great day. We love each other. We're all good. Temperature checks and go off the table. So I just wanted to note on that for storytelling. Matt, oh my God. I'm really bad at technology, babe. Man, I'm so bad at it. So I decided I wanted to launch an actual play. I was like, all
Uh-huh.
right, Symphony's gonna do it. I don't know the difference between Streamlabs and OBS, or even if I pronounce those correctly. So what Bridgett did is tap the community, and I reached out and I hired a director, a
Mhm.
producer. I hired a guy to come in and say, can you set this platform up for me? All of it. I'm talking about the back end, the front end. I need all of it set up for me. He's like, yeah, no problem. And I hired him to do it. Then it's set up. I was like, hey, I just really want to tell good stories. I don't have time to try to figure out this technology stuff. Can you sit on the streams and produce for me? Can you put up handouts and change sounds and make overlays and stuff like that? He's like, yeah, I'll do it. And then at some point I was like, all right, I'll learn it. And that's what I started doing. Very slowly, very surely, I started learning, but I leaned on other members of the community to help me. I remember one time I was struggling with overlays. Matt, I couldn't get, because I don't know how to use Photoshop at all. I don't even have that because I tried it and it just didn't work. So all my overlays are in PowerPoint, and somebody just had a heart attack in the background. I already know. All of my marketing is on PowerPoint because it's the only app that I know how to use. And I remember trying to do an overlay for a stream, and I couldn't get it to work, the transparency to work. So I Googled it, and I found one
Oh.
article by a woman I didn't know that was like, here's your step-by-step on how to do it. So I'm following it. I'm following. I keep getting stuck between point 6 and 7. I can't. I'm frustrated. And it's the only article I could find. There were no YouTube videos. There was no additional support because I refuse to learn. I refuse to
Yeah.
learn
The very small number of people who are doing what you're doing, but only in PowerPoint.
but
It's
only in
yeah,
PowerPoint. And
yeah,
I'm just like, oh Jesus. So I looked at this girl's name because it's like it was a blog article. I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna reach out to her. What's the worst she gonna tell me? No. I was like,
right,
hey,
right.
trying to follow the steps. I'm getting stuck between 6 and 7. You don't know me. There's no reason for you to know me. but can you help me? She's like, yeah, let's schedule a Zoom meeting. Really? Hop on a Zoom meeting. She walks me through everything. She gets me squared through everything. I was like, oh my God, I can Cash App you. I can PayPal you. That you literally just unlocked my life because I was really struggling and I didn't want to have to go learn a new app. Da, 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 da. I was like, what can I pay you? Da, da, da. She's like, oh, nothing. Just, reshare my blog and we'll call it even. Really? That's all you want? She's like, yeah, just repost the blog. That goes back to our prior conversation. People in the community helping other people in the community. Because of her, I'm able to keep streaming and I don't have to worry about the weight and the stress of trying to learn Photoshop because I don't want to. I ain't doing it. We'll pray about it maybe next year. But yeah, I'll say, babe, just to quickly wind down that answer, every stream that I produce is probably 10 hours of background work between communicating with the cast, making sure that everyone has their red lines in place, making sure all their inboarding and their onboarding paperwork is finished, setting up the overlays, getting those bots running in the background, all of the cross promoting and the marketing and the sharing. And
because like you're talking about, the bots are like the people are that there's constantly like communication in the chat thread about who you're watching and what they're
correct.
Correct.
Because I'm a firm believer that a rising tide lifts all ships. So if you're here on my platform, I want to promote you as well. So I want your stuff running in the background, but that takes time to get that information in, get it loaded, change it, blah, blah, blah. So I'll say every stream that I put out is probably between 5 and 10 hours, except for the sonatas. Those are usually like I can get crank that whole, I call it a stream package out in like maybe a couple hours. But it's a lot of behind the scenes work, guys. And then you got to export it to YouTube, and then you have to edit it, and you got to get it in the marketing clips, and it's a lot.
it's a lot. And I have not done anything as ambitious as like run my own stream. I've only been on other people's streams, and so like I don't know. It seems so intimidating, I guess, to like even the thought of like, oh, you got to hire other people to get involved, like that's it's obviously a bunch of work, so it's obviously got to be a labor of love to some extent, or
you have to love it. You got to love it, because I guarantee you Twitch ain't paying my bills right now, honey. And as much as I love my Patreon backers and you guys are amazing, that's paying the lights most months. So no, it's definitely a labor of love. I think another thing that goes into it though is, at least with Symphony's platform, I try to be as intentional as I can about bringing new people into it so that they can see it can be done. If you want to launch your own Twitch channel, I can't set it up for you because I outsource that, but this is what it looks like from the back end. You could do it even if you're just streaming, once a quarter. Who cares? If that's what you want to do, here's some exposure to it. You can at least try it out.
Yeah, I'm always telling people like, they ask me like, how do you get started writing a game? And I'm like, I don't know, you just write a 1-page game and then you're done. And then you've written a game. Like I don't know how to make it, I want people to know they can do it. Like
they can do it. You can do it.
You don't have to start with a 350-page manual that's got a huge world that you build. Like just start with a 1-page game. And then you've done it. And then your next project can be bigger, but just go on and do it. So it's similar. Obviously there's it sounds like there's more to an actual play than writing a 1-page RPG and putting it on your blog.
Honest with you, but your parallel was perfect. Oh God, that was a perfect parallel, babe. No, you're 100% right.
But like you've built up the Symphony Entertainment thing, and you've got your huge cast, and you like the people know each other, and so but that's taken. But you can start like you could start one and just do a live stream. You can start small. Yeah, everybody can start small.
Everyone can start small, and there's power in finishing.
Yes, because that's the momentum. Like if you're always waiting to finish because you don't think you're got the right to, or you've got the ability to, like then you've never finished anything. Like start something that you can finish it, and then now you're on to your second project, and
now you're on to your second one. It's going to go easier. You're not the same person walking into your second project that you were on your first one. You've got lessons underneath your belt now, but you do need to finish something.
Finish, start and finish are the two, like that's the first two steps to anything. Okay, we've wandered all over the place, Bridgett.
I love it, but you're great to wander with.
and it's been great. I think unless I have one more question I want to ask, but I don't want to like jump in if your time is short.
No, baby, listen, you don't understand how much I adore you and Brandon. You don't understand how much of a hype girl and fangirl I am for wedding games. I am on your
Well,
time, baby. Hit me.
okay. So I want to like I listened to we've talked about the Old Ways podcast. You
Yeah.
wrote the adventure Echoes in the Mist,
Mm-hmm.
and so like you've talked about your struggles and the hours that go into like the Symphony Entertainment thing. But then like you got to be a guest on another person's podcast and just show up and tell a story, and then I don't know, do you just tell up the story and then you got to walk away and then they had to do all that work, or like how involved were you in like their post production? Because they have like when there's a dog, there's like a dog barking in the background of the podcast, and like when there's rain coming down on the manor house, there's rain sounds in the background. Like they're obviously layering in all of that stuff, I assume after
Yes.
the fact rather than
Mm-hmm.
live. So like what was it like to be it was it a, I would like to think that it was like a gift that you got to come in and you sit down on your like keeper chair and you're like tell the story, and then you're like, all right, you take care of it, I'm going back to my house now. And like was it as delightful as that to like end up with that audio experience, or did you have to help, or were you involved in, I mean, how much back end was involved in that as opposed to what you do on your channel?
Yeah. So, um, one, if you guys aren't familiar with the Old Ways podcast, has some of the best storytelling in podcast history right now. They're running two different campaigns called Cthulhu Mass and Horror on the Orient Express simultaneously. They just
I
really
mean,
put out great content.
that Horror on the Orient Express campaign is like in season 6 or
Like
something like
6 or
that's been
7
going
right
on.
now. Like it's amazing. Mike Diamond is brilliant. So Regency Cthulhu had just come out. I had a conversation with Mike Diamond. I was like, hey, you want to do Regency Cthulhu on your podcast? He's like, yes. I was like, all right, I'll run, and blah blah blah. We assembled our cast and we got that ship sailing. I think there were 7 episodes in that series. What it is, I'm thinking of the quickest way to answer your question because I know I talk a lot. um, that was a custom made story that I made for the Old Ways podcast. I had a beginning, sort of. I knew the emotional beats that I wanted to hit. I knew the humanity flaws that I wanted to explore, and I knew the undertow stories that I wanted to tell. And then, I got distracted with the dog because I love dogs and blah, 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 blah in that particular game. So showing up, writing the game, communicating with the characters in the chat, checking in with everyone's storytelling was the semi extent of my particular involvement. Showed up, ran the game. However, there's so much more that I don't think we will see or realize that is such, I'm going to say a time dump, but that's not what I really want to say. I'm just tired. I can't think of it. The time investment
Yeah.
that comes into post-production. Did I have to do any of that editing myself? No. And thank God, because I don't even know what editing software these people are using nowadays because I am not good at technology. I do everything in PowerPoint and Zoom. So Mike did all of the editing, all of the splicing, all of the music, all of the sound effects. That was all Mike Diamond. And then I think he brought in Miranda for a couple of episodes too. So that was all on the Old Ways podcast. However, it's not, when you're in these type of situations professionally, there's a certain expectation for you to be present post-production. So it's not like I told the stories and I walked away and had a good day. You have to be active in the chat channel. So when people pop in and ask questions or they want to talk to your stuff, you can engage with them and you go back and forth. Then comes the marketing, because that marketing responsibility can't all fall on Mike. Like that was part of my production too. So then marketing, and then there were the t-shirts, and let's discuss how we want these to look. And then there was like
I didn't
cover
know there were
art, and
t-shirts. That's amazing.
yeah. There are that reoccurring phrase, all hell the Wailer in the Dark, the Unheard Howler, and he has that all on a t-shirt. So the story may be finished, but there is all of this post-production work that you still have to do to support it once it's finished.
And I suppose it's like, I mean, it came out like in January and February of this year, I think, is
I think so too.
when it was being released. So like when was it recorded? Like was it recorded like last summer or like last fall or like in like
Q3 and Q4?
Okay.
I remember recording after my birthday the finale, which was maybe end of December, but that one didn't air until March or whenever it actually landed.
So there's a significant lag in like the amount of time I mean, like any project has
like any project
post-production, like it's yeah. So it like I guess like to kind of finally like kind of thank you for that insight into like you
Yeah.
know, kind of like what the thing happened, but like what do you think that I mean, obviously the time, and I like the word investment because like you're
Hmm.
investing in sort of massaging the experience and cutting out all of the like player ums and
Yep.
the if there's nothing in that campaign that's like, oh, like where a player was like, oh geez, I don't know how I would react to this, let me think about it out loud
Right.
for a couple moments, well, okay, now
All of
here's
that
what it
has
would
to
do.
get cut
All
out.
of that gets
Yeah.
cut out so that like you're investing in making this like, you know, audio drama experience
Correct.
so much more intense. And so like the I guess like I mean, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but like definitely when you're doing like, okay, we're gonna do a live stream,
Hmm.
we're gonna broadcast, it's gonna be like the chat is gonna be making jokes, we're gonna be playing our
Correct.
game,
Correct.
and if people drop out or lose the thing or forget the rules, it's just all part of the experience.
Yeah.
And it's a very different experience to like, no, we've recorded our content, we're going to massage it, we're going to improve
Correct.
experience the ability of people to be drawn into the story by cutting out all
Correct.
of the like gameplay parts of it. um and
Actual
like
playing
it's,
podcasting, completely different monsters.
yeah, it's like a, well, yeah, I mean it's sort of like,
Or live
so like,
streaming and podcasting. Sorry.
yeah, so I don't even know what I'm even asking, but like definitely there's a big difference there, and like I'm sure they each have their charms, but
They
like,
do.
and so like I don't know. Would you do it again? Would you do it again? Like, is
Oh,
there,
yeah. Oh, yeah. So I get a high off of actual play performances, whether it's live streaming or podcasting. I genuinely get a high off of it, like to the point like I have trouble going to sleep at night. I have to take medicine to wind my nervous system down because I get a lot of charge off of those experiences. I really
mm,
enjoy them, whether it's a stream or a podcast. But now I'm the one blank. Like, where was I going with that, Matt?
we
There,
talked too long. We need to wrap this up, but like
we're good. Yeah.
it's
They're
great.
very different storytelling styles.
Yeah.
And I think the viewer gets two very different experiences out of them. I do a lot of podcasting where I hop on other people's platform and either run a mini game or show up as a guest player and things of that nature. And I enjoy it because I know everyone does something a little bit differently. And the cool thing about doing both of those simultaneously is you learn something new every time. The way Mike Diamond on Old Ways podcast does things is not the way that the Miskatonic University podcast does things. That's not the same as How We Roll does things. That's definitely not the same as the way Becca Scott with the Good Time Society does things. They're all different, but they all have their own little niche that they're catering to. So it's
Yeah.
fun to learn, develop, be challenged, and grow in those two different types of arenas.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a lot
And
of time, guys. Oh my God. If y'all, oh God, there's so much time investment. Jesus.
ah, but the dividends, right? That's what we want.
You get those
Um,
experience. And the big thing is you get those connections too.
yeah, yeah. Bridgett, thank you so much for
Oh
spending
my
like
God.
so
Thank
much
you
time
so much
talking to
for
me today.
having me.
It's
Sorry for
been
rambling.
incredible to hear all about you know, everything you're doing, that you have done. We didn't hear too much about what you will do. I usually ask about what's coming next, but like
That's all right.
I
It'll be
think we're taking
somewhere.
up too much time. So if people want to find out what you're doing next, I'm sure they can find out about that on your social medias or your
Mm-hmm.
channels or your discords or whatever you've got out there on the internet. So where can people tune in to find out more about you and what you will be doing in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So two-way split right now from the Symphony Entertainment side. If you're looking to get into streaming or Call of Cthulhu or any type of horror, Symphony Entertainment focuses on indie games, organic content, horror storytelling, and like character immersion. So whether that's Alien, the RPG, or Dark Places and Demogorgons, or Cult Divinity Lost, if you want to connect with us, you can hit us up at symphonyentertainment.com. If you want to see what I'm doing, you can just click to the CV and that'll give you like my little professional resume. It also give you links to all my social media, and I do what I can to put everything on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But really hit the Discord, come join us, and you'll be cooking with grease there because that's usually where I hang out the most amount of time. For the secondary half, I'm going to throw on my Chaosium hat.
Sure,
If
sure.
you are looking to write or publish for 7th edition Call of Cthulhu, That's one of the main facets of my job, is actually helping you get from I don't know what I'm doing to like, hey, you're actually on Drive Through RPG and you're published. Congratulations. And to Matt's point previously, it doesn't have to be a 350-page document. It can be a one-page scenario. You can come with an intro, a climax, a hook, and put that up. And you know what? You'll be finished. And you know what? You'll be published.
Yeah.
Hard stop, and then you can start working on project 2. So if you are looking to get involved with that program is called the Miskatonic Repository. As Matt's already mentioned, Symphony is doing a whole spotlight of Miskatonic Repository creators right now. Feel free to email me at Bridgett, that is a bridge that you walk across with 2 T's, at chaosium.com, and I can get you plugged in with all the resources and all the communities that you need to actually go from that sounds cool to I'm actually published. So those will be the 2 avenues that you can hit me up pretty easily.
Awesome. Those will be there, and I think I'll probably have to link to the Sabo stream that I played in, and also episode 1 of the Old Ways, Echoes of the Abyss, so people can start there and hear you being amazing and terrible at the amazing in your terribleness, bringing the terrible to in an amazing way.
Thank you.
Great, and again, thank you for spending so much time talking to me today. We'll see you at the con. We'll see you at the cons.
Hey, we'll see you soon. Hey, congratulations again too. Funded in like 24 hours. You guys.
Oh yes.
Wedding Games makes my soul so happy.
I think it was like 25. It wasn't quite 24 hours. It was like in the 25th hour. It was the 25th hour. I think we were like, yeah. But thank you.
Honey, Wedding Games. I am a fan girl. Thank you so much for having me, babe.
It's been a pleasure.